we have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.
I think his task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis.
Good evening, everybody. President Obama and British Prime Minister Gordon today calling for a new world order to tackle our global economic crisis.
And the president outlined his vision of a new world order in which the U.S. would participate fully.
We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
And one of the ways it will drive the change is through global governance and global agreements.
Never before has a new world order had to be assembled from so many different perceptions or on so global a scale. Nor has any previous order had to combine the attributes of the historic balance of power system with global democratic opinion and the exploding technology of the contemporary period.
There also exists an extraordinary opportunity to form for the first time in history a truly global society.
During the conflict with Saddam Hussein, which he handled so superbly in a short-term sense, but he kept talking about a new world order. And then President Bush, at the end of that war, promised he would give 4 graduation addresses, 4 commencement addresses, describing that new world order and what America's role was going to be in it. It turned out he gave one of those addresses and canceled the other 3 and talked about something else. That's what, because they weren't ready yet.
And this present window of opportunity, during which a truly peaceful and interdependent world order might be built, will not be here for too long. Already there are powerful forces at work that threaten to destroy all of our hopes and efforts to erect an enduring structure of global cooperation.
Just one thing, we could go on about how your family committed all these acts against society, but we just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy. And that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well,
we just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy, and that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve.
well,
Now, recently the Pope came to America. He was talking about the United Nations 2030 Agenda. The 2030 Agenda is basically Agenda 21 just repackaged, put in a prettier package. But it's still the same thing. In fact, I'd say that this is even worse. They're literally putting it right out there in front of our face. They're telling people what they're going to do. It's fascinating because the way they can put it out there and the way they spin it, so few people actually understand the implications or the wickedness behind this design. Now, this article was found on Natural News. It was actually originally written by Michael Snyder of endoftheamericandream.com. So I'll leave a link below to both of those sources. The document itself described nothing less than a global government takeover of every nation across the planet. This is Agenda 2030. The goals of the document are nothing more than the code words for a corporate government fascist agenda that will imprison humanity in a devastating cycle of poverty while enriching the world's most powerful globalist corporations like Monsanto and DuPont. Now here's a point-by-point translation of the document, and notice how nowhere in the document does it ever state anything about achieving human freedom as one of its goals, because they want the exact opposite of that. And nor does it ever explain how these goals are actually going to be achieved of theirs. So as you'll see here, every single point in this UN agenda is to be achieved through centralized government control and totalitarian mandates that resemble communism. So the first goal is end poverty in all its forms everywhere. That's the goal. The translation is put everyone on government welfare, food stamps, housing subsidies, and handouts that make them obedient slaves to global government. Never allow people upward mobility to help themselves. Instead, teach mass victimization and obedience to a government that provides monthly allowance money for basic essentials like food and medicine. We'll label it ending poverty. Goal number 2 is end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. It sounds so nice, doesn't it? But the translation is invade the entire planet with GMOs and Monsanto's patented seeds, while increasing the use of deadly herbicides under the false claim of increased output of food crops. Engineer genetically modified plants to boost specific vitamin chemicals while having no idea of the long-term consequences of genetic pollution or cross-species genetic experiments carried out openly in a fragile ecosystem. Number 3 is ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Translation is mandate 100% vaccines for all children and adults at gunpoint, threatening parents with arrest and imprisonment if they refuse to cooperate. I don't mean to laugh at that, guys. This is real stuff here, but they'll push heavy medication use on children as well. We see that. Goal number 4 is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Translation, push a false history and a dumbed-down education under Common Core education standards that produce obedient workers rather than independent thinkers. Never let people learn real history, or else they might realize they don't want to repeat it. Goal number 5 is achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Translation, criminalize Christianity, marginalize heterosexuality, demonize males, and promote the LGBT agenda everywhere. The real goal is never equality, but rather the marginalization and shaming of anyone who expresses any male characteristics whatsoever. The ultimate goal is to feminize society, creating widespread acceptance of gentle obedience, along with the self-weakening ideas of communal property and sharing everything, because only male energy has the strength to rise up against oppression and fight for human rights. The suppression of male energy is key to keeping the population in a state of eternal acquiescence. Goal number 6, ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Translation, allow powerful corporations to seize control of the world's water supplies and charge monopoly prices to, quote, build new water delivery infrastructure that, quote, ensures availability. Goal number 7 is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Ha! Translation, penalize coal, gas, and oil while pushing doomed-to-fail green energy subsidies to brain-dead startups headed by friends of the White House who all go bankrupt in 5 years or less. The green startups make for impressive speeches and media coverage, but because these companies are led by corrupt idiots rather than capable entrepreneurs, they always go broke. Goal number 8 is to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Translation, regulate small business out of existence with government-mandated minimum wages that bankrupt entire sectors of the economy. Force employers to meet hiring quotas of LGBT workers while mandating wage tiers under a centrally planned work economy dictated by the government. Destroy free market economies and deny permits and licenses to those companies that do not obey the government dictates. Goal number 9 is to build resilient infrastructure and promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. Translation, put the nations into extreme debt with the World Bank, spending debt money to hire corrupt American corporations to build large-scale infrastructure projects that trap developing nations in an endless spiral of debt. You can see the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins to understand the details of how this scheme has actually been repeated countless times over the past several decades. Goal number 10 is to reduce inequality within and among countries. Translation: punish the rich, the entrepreneurs, and the innovators, confiscating nearly all gains by those who choose to work and excel. Redistribute the confiscated wealth to the masses of non-working human parasites that feed off of a productive economy while contributing nothing to it, all while screaming about equality. Goal number 11, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Translation: ban all gun ownership by private citizens, concentrating guns into the hands of obedient government enforcers who rule over an unarmed, enslaved class of impoverished workers. Criminalize living in the most rural areas by instituting Hunger Games-style protected areas, which the government will claim are owned by the, quote, people. We already have that, guys. They're called FEMA regions. You can look that up. Even though no people are allowed to live there, force all humans into densely packed, tightly controlled cities where they are under 24/7 surveillance and subject to easy manipulation by the government. Goal number 12 is to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Translation: begin levying punitive taxes on the consumption of fossil fuels and electricity, forcing people to live under conditions of worsening standards of living that increasingly resemble third world conditions. Use social influence campaigns in TV, movies, and social media to shame people who use gasoline, water, or electricity, establishing a social construct of ninnies and tattlers who run out their neighbors in exchange for food credit rewards. Goal number 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Translation: set energy consumption quotas on each human being and start punishing or even criminalizing lifestyle decisions that exceed energy usage limits set by governments. Institute total surveillance of individuals in order to track and calculate their energy consumption. Penalize private vehicle ownership and force the masses onto public transit, where TSA grunts and facial recognition cameras can monitor and record the movement of every person in society. It's like a scene ripped right out of the movie Minority Report. Goal number 14 is to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Goal number 15 is to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. It's a mouthful. The translation is roll out Agenda 21 and force humans off the land and into controlled cities. Criminalize private land ownership, including ranches and agricultural tracts. Tightly control all agriculture through a corporately controlled government bureaucracy whose policies are determined almost entirely by Monsanto while being rubber stamped by the USDA. Ban wood stoves, rainwater collection, and home gardening in order to criminalize self-reliance and force total dependence on government. Goal number 16 is to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Translation: grant legal immunity to illegal aliens and protected minority groups, which will be free to engage in any illegal activities they choose, including openly calling for the mass murder of police officers, because they are the new protected class in society, you see. Inclusive institutions, that means granting favorable tax structures and government grants to corporations that hire LGBT workers or whatever groups are currently in favor with the central planners in government. Using the IRS and other federal agencies to selectively punish unfavorable groups with punitive audits and regulatory harassment, all while ignoring the criminal activities of favored corporations that are friends of the political elite. Goal number 17 is to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Translation: Enact global trade mandates that override national laws while granting unrestricted imperialism powers to companies like Monsanto, Dow Chemical, R.J. Reynolds, Coca-Cola, and Merck. Pass global trade pacts that bypass the nation's lawmakers and override intellectual property laws to make sure the world's most powerful corporations maintain total monopolies over drugs, seeds, chemicals, and technology. Basically, they'll nullify all national laws and demand total global obedience to trade agreements authored by powerful corporations and rubber-stamped by the UN. If you read the full document and can read beyond the fluffery and public relations phrases, you'll quickly realize that this UN agenda is going to be forced upon all the citizens of the world through the invocation of government coercion. Nowhere does this document state that the rights of the individual will be protected, because they won't. Nor does it even acknowledge the existence of human rights granted to individuals by our Creator. Even the so-called Universal Declaration of Human Rights utterly denies individuals the right to self-defense, the right to medical choice, and the right to parental control over their own children. The UN is planning nothing less than a global government tyranny that enslaves all of humanity while calling the scheme sustainable development and equality. You see, these people really aren't that sneaky. As we've seen right here, they keep using the same tactics over and over again. But right now, it's on our doorstep. It's not just here in America. As we've just read, it's all around the world. Now we're seeing these tactics come into play on a global scale with Agenda 2030. And once again, Agenda 2030 is just another label for the same old stunts these people have been trying to pull behind the scenes for centuries. They're really not that clever. Some of us see what they're doing. Not all of us. The majority, I believe, is still lost. But we're growing. We may be a smaller number compared to the mass majority of the planet, but our numbers are growing. People are waking up. We're beginning to see through this stuff. And we have to fight it in our own individual ways.